Hello, and welcome back to the Become That Girl Society, where we discuss leveling up strategies so you can become the girl of your dreams. Today, we are talking about the third stage of envy, obsession. Make sure to go back to the first two videos and the entire 5-part series. So at this stage, we've gone beyond bitterness. Now your hater is watching you, studying your movements, tracking your progress. They can't stop thinking about you, whether they realize it or not. At this stage, envy is no longer just an emotion, it's a full-blown behavior. Maybe they're copying you, trying to mimic your style, your choices, even your personality. Maybe they turn everything into a competition, making sure to match or surpass your every move. Or maybe they're just quietly obsessed, tracking what you do without ever admitting that they've become fixated. And the wildest part? Some of them don't even realize they're doing it. This is where envy goes from passive to active, where it stops being an internal emotion and turns into external action. And if you've ever had someone in your life who suddenly starts dressing, talking, or acting like you, always finds a way to one-up whatever you do, even if you're not competing, mirrors your achievements but plays it off as a coincidence, seems more invested in watching your life than actually living their own, then congratulations, you might have a silent competitor. And the scariest thing, most people don't catch on until it's too late. Because in the beginning, it's easy to brush it off. It's easy to think, oh, they're just inspired by me. Or that's flattering, right? But over time, you start to feel it. You start to sense that their admiration isn't admiration anymore. It's an obsession. And today, we're going to break down exactly how envy morphs into fixation, the warning signs you need to look for, and most importantly, how to protect yourself from people who are trying to be you. So how does someone go from silently resenting you to becoming so fixated on your every move that they start mirroring your life? The answer? They don't know who they are without you anymore. At this stage, their envy has become more than just an emotion. It has rewired their entire sense of self. In the earlier stages, maybe they still had their own goals, their own interests, their own sense of direction. But once obsession takes over, they stop looking inward and start looking at you. Instead of building their own identity, they become hyper-focused on yours. And this is what makes this stage so dangerous. Because people who reach this level of envy don't just want what you have. They start measuring their entire existence against yours. It's no longer just, I wish I had what they have. It turns into, I need to keep up with everything they do. If they're ahead of me, that means I'm failing. If I can't beat them, I'll become them. See, at this point, they've lost touch with who they are. Their self-worth is no longer based on their own growth, their own accomplishments, or their own journey. Instead, it's tied directly to you. If you succeed, they feel like they've failed. If you change something in your life, they feel the pressure to do the same. If you start something new, they feel the immediate need to copy it, sometimes before you've even fully started. And here's where things get really unsettling. Many of them don't even realize they're doing it. At first, they might convince themselves that it's just admiration. They might tell themselves that you inspire them, that they just like your style, your choices, your mindset. But over time, their admiration turns into a full-blown identity crisis because deep down, they don't believe they're good enough on their own. They start thinking, if I just copy what they do, I can have what they have. I need to prove that I'm just as good or better. If they're successful and I do everything they do, then I'll be successful too. It's no longer about just wanting to improve themselves. It's about erasing the gap between you and them. And here's the real kicker. Because they're so obsessed with keeping up with you, they actually start losing themselves in the process. Instead of asking, what do I want? They start asking, what are they doing next? Instead of setting personal goals, they wait to see what your next move is so they can match it or outdo it. They no longer see themselves as a separate person with their own unique strengths and path. They see themselves as your shadow. And that's when things get really weird. Because once someone replaces their own sense of self with yours, they stop being just envious. They stop being just competitive. Now, they're obsessed. And the scariest part? They'll never admit it, They'll swear up and down that their choices have nothing to do with you. They'll act like their new style, their new career move, their sudden shift in interests is purely coincidental. But when you step back and look at the pattern, it's undeniable. And the more you try to ignore it, the bolder they get. It's about needing to prove to themselves that they are just as good or better. And that's when obsession turns into something even more toxic. That's when it turns into competition. The next thing they start doing is copying you. But pretend it's a coincidence. One of the biggest red flags that someone's obsession with you has gone too far is when they start imitating everything you do, but act like it's just a coincidence. At first, it might seem harmless. Maybe you post a picture of your new haircut, and within a week, they have the exact same style. It seems a little weird, but you brush it off. After all, people influence each other, right? But then it keeps happening. You buy a new outfit, they buy one just like it. You start a new business, they suddenly have a similar idea. You say something in conversation, they repeat it later as if it was their own thought. You pick up a new hobby, they become obsessed with it overnight. You change your Instagram aesthetic, suddenly their feed looks exactly like yours. And at first, you might not even notice. But over time, it starts feeling like you're looking in a mirror, but it's not your reflection. Now, there's a huge difference between innocent admiration and obsession. Admiration means someone is inspired by you but puts their own spin on things. Obsession means they try to become you while pretending they're not copying at all. See, when people admire you, they may be influenced by your style, your work, or your choices, but they still maintain their own sense of self. They add their own flavor to things. But someone who is obsessed with envying you, they don't want to just be inspired by you. They want to raise the gap between you and them. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. They will never admit it. If you ever bring it up, their responses will always sound something like this. Oh, I didn't even realize. Even though the pattern is undeniable. That's so funny. I was already planning to do that. Sure you were. They will do everything to avoid acknowledging that their choices are directly influenced by you. And why? Because they don't see themselves as copying you. In their mind, they are just naturally evolving, even though every step of their evolution happens right after you make a move. And here's where it gets even creepier. The more you ignore it, the bolder they get. First, it's little things, your clothes, your hobbies, your slang. Then it escalates into them wanting the same relationships, the same goals, the same lifestyle. They start making decisions based on yours. They start anticipating what you might do next and positioning themselves to match or surpass it. And that's the moment when you realize they're not just watching you, they're trying to be you. And when someone has tied their identity to yours, things start getting dangerous. Because eventually, copying isn't enough. Eventually, they need to win. They're not just watching you. They feel like they have to beat you. You might be living your life, minding your business, focusing on your own success. But suddenly, everything starts feeling like a race. You don't even remember signing up for a competition, but somehow you've been entered into one. You get a promotion, they immediately start talking about their job, even if it's completely unrelated. You post about an achievement, they randomly share something big they did too, right after you. You start a new fitness routine, they suddenly start posting about their workouts, making sure to outdo you. You mention an exciting project, they rush to execute something similar before you can. At first, you might wonder, are they just excited about their own life? But no, this isn't about them. It's about you. They are tracking everything you do because they need to prove something to themselves, to you, and to the world. It's not enough for them to be successful on their own terms. They need to feel like they are doing better than you. This is when envy turns into silent competitiveness. They start comparing their achievements to yours, even if they work in a completely different field. They make subtle remarks that hint at competition, even when you weren't thinking about them at all. They downplay your wins while overhyping their own. They secretly keep tabs on your progress, and they use it as fuel for their own decisions. And the scariest part, they won't stop. Because no matter what they achieve, it will never be enough. But because their entire identity is built around keeping up with you. They can't stop tracking your every move. And here's why that's so dangerous. They are no longer living for themselves, they are living through you. And the more they compete, the more obsessed they become. Because if they ever stop watching you, if they ever stop trying to beat you, they'll be forced to face the one thing they've been avoiding this entire time: the fact that they have no idea who they are without you. And that's the most terrifying realization of all, because someone who has no identity of their own, that's the kind of person who will never stop trying to take yours. In the next video in this 5-part series, we're going to be talking about sabotage. Because in stage 4, obsession turns into sabotage. This is when envious people stop watching and start plotting. They don't just compete, they try to tear you down. So if you've ever had someone spread rumors, steal your ideas, or try to block your success, that's the next level of envy. Hit the like button, subscribe, and keep watching for more.